Welcome, and thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. For many people out there in the world today who are bombarded by an overload of technology, information, and a growing population, we're finding ourselves more and more finding depression and things such as anxiety. And, of course, there are companies out there that are smiling about this situation as we reach into medicine cabinets to relieve ourselves from this very thing. But what if there is a way that we can actually relieve ourselves in a very natural way? And not only that, but increase our power and spiritual ability at the same time. On the program today, we're going to learn about a very simple yet powerful practice that aligns people with their heart's greatest desire, which is conscious connection and union with the divine source within and everywhere else. It is known as an ancient teaching which is based in praise, gratitude, and love that naturally dissolves stress from the body, brings peace to the mind, and returns life to optimal potential. Now, mind you that this ascension that we're going to be discussing today is not a religion and will effortlessly work for anyone, anywhere, regardless of belief. And on our program today, we'll be joined with special guest Nandasarva Ishaya, who is with the Ishaya Foundation and is going to be sharing this very ancient technique. Nandasarva, thank you for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program.
Well, you're welcome, Daniel. It's a delight to be here.
Now, first of all, how did you come to, have this come into your life?
Well, I went on a conscious search probably a good 25 years ago. My children were all grown, gone from the house and everything, and throughout most of my life, which was very active, I raised a family with 3 children. I had different businesses. I worked for others. I absolutely enjoyed life. I was into sports even. I had a cabin up in north central Minnesota. And all kinds of graduations and family things going on, and yet there was always something missing. And I would find myself walking away even from the fun things I was doing and just be by myself. I loved going into nature. And it was at this point in my life where when the kids were gone, I decided to find out what that is. So I tried all different kinds of modalities. I went on mountaintops and vision quest. I became a spiritual director in the Christian tradition. I tried all different kinds of modalities and meditation. And then at one point I came across this practice called the Art of Ascension as taught by the Ishayas. And in reality I wanted nothing to do with it at first, to tell you the truth. Because of my background, ascension to me meant leaving here, ascending beyond. And I didn't know where that was going to take me. I had no idea. I liked it here on Earth overall. There were some things I didn't like about it, but generally speaking, I enjoyed it, and I wanted to stick around. Then I found out what they meant by the Art of Ascension is ascending beyond the limiting beliefs and thoughts and ideas to the truth of who we really are and living fully here right now where we are in this moment. And that was about 20 years ago, and I took the course, and it basically changed my life from the inside out. I felt as though I had become home, and I became the finder of what I was seeking. And I think we all have to really become a finder. Otherwise, there's endless things that are going to keep us on the treadmill looking for what we want, and what we really want, we already have. We just ignore it because we're so caught up by all the distractions on the outside and these desires. And there's nothing wrong with desires, but what's the ultimate desire that we want? And I think the most important thing are answers to the questions that we all really have. The important questions is like, who am I? Why am I here? What is this really all about? This is the answer. To me, it's the answer, and for many people I've taught over the years, it's the answer.
Now, it's unique when sometimes I think we find ourselves stepping off a path, and I just mean our own journey, and we feel a sense of loss or disconnection, and as you were saying, it was kind of finding a way that would actually bring back maybe a sense of personal peace. and we search outside of ourselves. Now, it sounds to me like perhaps you had found something that actually said, well, did you think that it was out there? I mean, let's go ahead and turn inward. Is that kind of an accurate way to look at this?
Well, very much so. Basically, what it boils down to, as you mentioned in your introduction, is what is the purpose of life? What's the goal of human life? And there are some great teachers in the past, Christ being one of them, when he said, "Seek first the kingdom of heaven or of God, whatever you want to call it, and then all else is added unto you." And he was asked, and he says, "Well, where is that kingdom?" And he said, "It's within you. It's already there." The old saying, "Be still and know that I am here, that I am God, I am one with you." There's so many. This reminds me of an ancient Chinese curse I heard once a long time ago. "May you be born at an interesting time." Well, this is it. And in a way, it's a curse because it keeps us from going in. There's so many things now that distract us. We've got the internet. We've had TV for so many years. Even TV monitors are on the gas pumps right now. There's hardly a store or a place you can go to actually get quiet and begin to listen to the inner voice that is always there guiding us for a greater good.
I have a friend of mine who's in the hospitality industry, and she was talking. We were having a nice long conversation, kind of along these lines. And she says, it astounds me when I see families come out to dinner, what I see this day and age. She says, you'll find pretty much every single family member either with a cell phone in their hand or there's a small iPad. And now restaurants, she says a friend of hers actually has a restaurant that's actually now putting these little, I guess they're called little miniature kiosk things, little computers that are supposed to help the service become more efficient, but now you can play video games, I guess, on these things. But she says, I'll see families come out, and the only time they're ever talking is when they're talking to me to tell me what it is they want. But the rest of the time, they're hardly ever making eye contact with each other. They're hardly ever saying anything at all to each other. And she says, and these children, in some cases, will run as early as 2 years old, sitting at these tables. And this is what their experience is, dining together now. I don't know about you, but I grew up at a time where our family sat down at the dinner table. I mean, eventually by the time I became teenager, we were teenagers, it kind of got scattered. You get busy, that sort of a thing. But that's what was going on as we sat down at the table and we had dinner. And I'll never forget just how enjoyable that really was. And to think that today, that families, we're going out to dinner because that's the only time they actually sit down and have dinner together. And now this is the outcome. And when you say about distraction, it just seems where they found it has been the way has been found in the commercial industry, if you will. And what I mean commercial, it means the supply of indulgences such as entertainment, is that they've literally found a way to hook children in. And the parents are allowing this. This is who I point the finger at. How else do these devices get into these hands here? That you're creating basically drug addicts before they're even allowed a chance to know what it's like to be able to enjoy a walk in the woods or a conversation, to share ideas, things like that. This is a time that when you say interesting, that could be a good word. I'd think astounding sometimes is a more louder word we need to use, like people. Let's wake up here because it's pretty crazy what's going on.
Well, Danny, you look at the parents themselves, and why are they allowing that? Why are they doing it themselves? And that's because they're really all looking. But they're looking again in the wrong place. They're looking for happiness. They're looking for that which they think is going to give them happiness or inner peace. Their entertainment, movies, sports, you name it, anything outside of themselves. New clothes, houses, anything out there. It's just, we are in such a materialistic world, and it's even more and more so, and it's more on instant gratification, where you got places like Amazon with their Prime, they'll ship things overnight for you. Just spend $10 a month or whatever else it is, and get it quicker. And in reality, they're all looking. Every one of us are looking for the same exact thing. We're looking for happiness. But the real happiness is what we can find within us. And many people are afraid to go there. They're afraid of what they're going to find. They're afraid of maybe emotions coming out or whatever else it is. But beyond all of that, beyond the fear, and even the great masters of all time said, fear not. Just go for it. Go through it. Go beyond it. Go into it, whatever it may be, because that's where you're going to find it. But we need a tool these days because of the distractions that are out there, because the mind is so busy. Stanford Research University many years ago did a study and found out that the average person in the Western culture here in America has about 60,000 thoughts per day. Well, today that may be closer to 100,000 thoughts. And what are most of those thoughts about? It's not about peace or joy or creating some outstanding new ways of doing things or interacting with family or friends or whatever else it is. Most of it's about what happened earlier in the day, in my life, in the past, whatever else it is, and projecting them into the future, waiting or looking forward for something later on that's going to give them the happiness. But the only way they're ever going to find it is right here, right now, in this moment. And that's what a tool like this and all great tools and practices of teachings are about, is becoming still, becoming quiet. Let the mind go to the source itself. Give it a tool to go there and connect with it. And then from there, we're going to have the answers to our life. It's very, very difficult to try to do it on your own anymore without a tool. So that's what the great teachings have always been about. And they're simple, they're easy, they're natural, which is what the Art of Ascension really is. If you're spiritual, it can be considered or called the perfect prayer, because it has no opposite. You're not coming from less than or beseeching or whatever else it may be. It's based on praise and on gratitude and love and compassion. And if you're scientific, it's a series of mechanical techniques that naturally align the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere of the brain and takes the mind to the deeper levels. And then as a result of that, the mind begins to get quiet because it's getting what it's looking for. And what's the mind looking for? It's looking for the perfect thought. It's like a monkey jumping really from branch to branch in a tree looking for the perfect banana. Well, the mind is so busy because it really is looking for the perfect thought. We give it the perfect thought, and then, boom, it settles down. And that's what the Ascension attitudes really are about, is to give that busy mind what it's really looking for. And as it begins to rest then, which the mind will do, the body then will rest also for a moment. And then as the body rests, what does it do? It begins to heal itself just naturally. So when you use this practice with eyes closed as a meditation, like all great meditations, really very simple meditations, it will give you deeper rest and the deepest sleep at night. In fact, 20 minutes of it is comparable to 8 hours, more than 8 hours of sleep, twice that amount even. And then stress naturally dissolves. So you don't have to go digging around saying, well, what's wrong with me? What's the problem here? How do we solve this? Blah, blah, blah. Get quiet, and the answers will come as the stuff gets out of the way.
Now, share with the listeners the history, how this all started.
Well, it's got a lineage behind it, so it's not just some person's recent invention, so to speak, or creation. It's been around for millennia. It goes through many of the great traditions of all times and beliefs, because as it says in there, the Art of Ascension is taught by the Ishayas. Well, Ishaya is a Sanskrit word. It comes from Isha, And Isha stands for full human consciousness, for waking up, or for Christ consciousness. And Ya means a student of that, or for that. So it has been taught orally for all these many, as I say, thousands of years, and is handed down through teachings that are a one-on-one type of a basis. You won't find this written really down in any books. It's never supposed to have been actually done that way at all. Or hear it on, I would say, online or through the internet. It's taught in a weekend workshop where people can actually experience it for themselves with the proper guidance from the teachers who are qualified to teach this and are annually qualified to teach it. And it was brought out again about 25 years ago by a gentleman by the name of MSI, which stands for Maharishi Sadashiva Ishan, who I love saying this, he's a white guy from Seattle who became a Maharishi, a fully enlightened individual. And he's the one who came across the teachings in the Himalayas, where basically they find out there's all the great masters have got some place out there, call it paradise, call it whatever else you want. And he was given the teaching to spread it to the world. And he did so back in the early 1990s and wrote actually a series of books about it and about his own experience in the Himalayas, whatever name you want to use for that. And he also wrote another book that's an analysis of the Art of Ascension called Ascension. But this other book about the teaching itself and how it came about is called First Thunder by MSI. And there's two other books in the series, Second Thunder and Third Thunder. And MSI himself, then, what he did is he gathered around him other teachers, those who wanted to become teachers of this, and put them in a higher state of consciousness over a number of years themselves by being so close to them, and then he passed on in the late 1990s. And what's really cool from my standpoint about him is you're never going to find out much about him at all. None of his books have a picture of him or a bio of him because it was never meant to be about him. It's about the teaching. And that's what all true teachers ever taught about, is the teaching. They didn't want to make a religion out of it, or so to speak, or anything like that. And he didn't want any followers. He wanted people to join him in this. So I came across it myself, and as I mentioned, about 20 years ago, and it changed my life so that within 2 years I decided, man, I've got to share this with the world. So I've been teaching it now for 18 years. And I absolutely enjoy it and love sharing it. And it enlivens my own teaching by sharing it even, and my own belief in it, because it works, and it's going to work for anyone because, again, it's not a belief system. It works naturally.
Now, I like what you shared there about the idea of the original person who shared this, to simply say, but I don't want you following me around. And there seems to be a lot of that guru-driven movement. All of a sudden somebody finds a way, and then they get all caught up in themselves like they're the direct line to, I don't know, God, if you will. And everybody just sheepishly sort of smiles and says, oh, master, and I wonder if sometimes there's something within people that causes them to want to just be followers because they don't want to do the work. I don't know. It's just kind of a question I'm throwing out there. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think part of it you hit on the head. They don't want to do the work.
They think just by following this person and serving them and dressing and going through the superficial motions, and you see this, but you think, I don't know why, but somehow I look in your eyes, and it's not to be a judge about anything. That's fine. If you believe you're happy doing that, by all means, go do it. But the fact is that I somehow see in your eyes you really don't believe what it is you're doing. I don't know. Just a thought.
Well, there are, I like what you said too, there's actually a number of ego-driven people out there, who are looking for followers, as you said. And people, maybe even some organized religion is a little bit at fault on this, because some of them have taught us that we're less than. We're born in sin, and we need to be saved. And I know many people looked at Jesus Christ as the Savior, and in reality, his message was, no, go to the Father yourself. Go to that which I go to. And become one with that. Know that. Listen to that and follow the instructions that are going to come from that. And that is within each one of us, because that's what he said, go within. And that's where a good meditation will take you. It will take you into the quiet mind. The mind does what it does. The mind is busy. But if we give it what it's looking for, it's going to begin to quiet down even more and more so. And then it's going to begin to hear. Well, we actually are going to begin to hear that silent, still voice that's always been there guiding us to our greater good. All true teachings ultimately are going to point the finger back at your own heart. And that's what this teaching does, because it doesn't tell you how to act, what to believe, what to wear, what to eat, or any of that kind of stuff. It gets you back in touch with what you, underneath all the thoughts and ideas that limit you, really want. And we are the creators. We've created these lives ourselves. We don't like to believe that half the time or realize that, but we do. And why do we do it? Because of our thoughts. And if we can change our way of thinking, our life will change from inside out for the better.
Now, let's talk about ascension. That was something that you brought up earlier in the program. Now, what exactly is ascension? Is that to rise? Or go ahead and talk about that.
Mm-hmm. Ascension, in this particular case, the art of ascension means to ascend beyond, to rise beyond these limiting thoughts and beliefs and ideas that we're less than, that we're not worthy, that we have to earn this, that blah, 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 blah. All these 100,000 or so thoughts each day that prevent us from achieving our goals or being the creators that we really are. And as we ascend beyond those, we begin to see the bigger picture, and we begin to experience that which we truly want and who we truly are. And that is, and we are the creators. We've been told this. We're created in the image and likeness of the Creator. Well, most of humanity doesn't feel that way. They feel that they're less than, or the ego is so strong that it's caught into selfish creation, just for me, based upon greed and want and need and all this other stuff. And most of that seems to come from underlying beliefs and thoughts anyway of being less than, because they're driven to do that which is not in harmony with the rest of nature or creation. So in this particular situation, ascension does not mean to ascend out of here. No. It means to live fully here, to ascend beyond these beliefs so we can actually experience heaven here on earth, because it is here. Most of people are just blind to it. They're caught up in all these other thoughts and ideas.
Just yesterday, I was doing a wonderful show with a woman who is an herbalist up in the Pacific Northwest, and she had made a comment that was, or actually shared a quick little story about something that was, I found kind of funny, and how much reality there was in what she said. She says, I have a lot of times people will come to me, and they just want to know what a particular herb does. They want to take the shortcut. In other words, it's kind of like going to the supermarket. Where's your meat department? What's the best steak, kind of a thing. And what she had said was there was a woman who had actually done that. And apparently, she that particular day was experiencing just a little bit of frustration with people. So apparently the story goes such as that the woman was perusing out in the garden, that sort of a thing, and she just simply asked the question, maybe from being just impatient, so what is this particular herb here good for? And her response to the person was simply this, well, what are you good for? And I thought to myself, kind of the genius in that moment that here everybody's running around expecting other people to answer their questions, to solve their problems, without doing the work, as we actually mentioned before.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy, and you see it so often today, that you get to a point where, well, when you don't get the outcome that you were desiring, that you can now easily blame someone else for that situation. And I think we've come to a point where it's rather sad that we can't really take any kind of control of our own destiny, to the point that we can actually blame or even have lawsuits against people for things like that. Kind of crazy stuff.
Well, it's a victimhood consciousness that's out there, and yet everybody creates it. We hear about free will, and of course we were given free will, but most of us think that we have the free will to do what we want to do here. We're in reality, and this doesn't require belief or anything either. But from what my understanding and what my knowing is that our free will is that which brought us here to experience this particular lifetime, so that we can grow in consciousness. And it actually, before we even came here, it was outlined for us based upon our, unfulfilled desires and karma, the type of life we're going to live, who we're going to interact with, who our parents are going to be, our siblings are going to be, what experiences we're going to experience. And we chose that before we came here. And then we begin to feel like victims after a while when we come into maturity, so to speak, or whatever else it is, because so much of our attention is outside of ourselves that we have no idea that, what the heck? Why is this happening to me? What caused this? Why am I in this situation? Blah, 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 And it even comes down to the diseases and the sicknesses that we're experiencing. None of us are victims to it. We just like to think we are because we don't want to take responsibility for that which we have already created. So as our consciousness begins to grow and expand more and more so, with practices like Ascension, what happens is that everything unlike unconditional love begins to dissolve from our body. It begins to dissolve from our nervous system, so that we become more and more clear, and we become more connected with, as I mentioned, that voice within us that guides us. And then we begin to actually realize in a higher level of consciousness that we are the creators. We've created it all anyway. And that everything is coming to us for our greater good. Even that which we don't like or hate or whatever else it may be. So acceptance is a big part of it. It really is. But to accept the fact that, I am born deformed, or I have this terrible illness or sickness or whatever else it is, well, we don't have to go try to figure out how we created it or anything like that. It is. It's something that we need to accept, because in reality it is something that we need or have chosen to go through in a greater way. But then that gets back to the work. Most people out there, because they are so distracted, they're looking, like you say, for the easy way out, for the instant gratification. And it comes to a point where maybe some people have to suffer to the degree where they call it the dark night of the soul, where now there's only one way out, and that's to rise above it, or to leave the whole thing and come back and redo it. But it doesn't have to have suffering even on it, Daniel. There's the path that we have chosen may include some pain along the way and what we could call suffering. But as we wake up more and more, so we can look at some of the examples of the saints and all the different kinds of religions, what they went through, and yet they continue to focus on the one thing that matters the most to them. Well, they did it for us. Christ did it for us, whatever else you want to say. We're in a situation right now where we can actually choose for the happiness. We can choose to be grateful. We can choose, to appreciate. And as a result of that, the love will simply naturally grow. And then the compassion part of it is that as we change and we focus more on praise and gratitude and love, we naturally will share that with others, and then that will grow in them more so even when they recognize it. So it's up to each one of us. I love what the Ishayas say. Even their purpose here basically is the saving of the world through the saving of the self. That's the only way it can happen, because the world as we see it out there really is a reflection of our own beliefs and our own thoughts. Anyway, and it comes to becoming spiritually and mentally mature to realize that there are answers to who I am. What is this all about? Why am I here? Why is anybody else here? Find that out for yourself. Have the courage to go in to yourself, to go within, and let that junk and that crap and those old false beliefs and ideas simply dissolve, so that which lies within you, that bright light. It's like when you're in a dark room, it doesn't do any good to crawl around and search for the cause of the darkness. Turn on the switch and the light will come on and you can see clearly. And that's what Ascension does then.
Pretty amazing just how simple it can be, but it was kind of funny how it was placed in such a tricky way. I know you're going to be looking outside yourself, so I'm going to put it in the hardest place you're going to, the last place you're going to look, which is inside of yourself. But it's so true too, just how easy life gets. It doesn't mean that you won't face challenges, but the thing is you'll get to a point in your life, I think, that you'll come to welcome them, because you realize it's so true, sort of like Nietzsche's quote, that which doesn't kill us makes us stronger. And there's so much truth in that. And when you can come to that place where when you begin to have problems, instead of why does this always happen to me, you're simply saying, it's about time. I was getting bored there for a minute.
That is certainly one way to look at it. And it's the only thing that's really going to work in the long run. And there's I don't follow politics that much anymore, because just for my own personal reasons, but I kind of am interested as to what's going on right now only because of Marianne Williamson involved in there. And the reason for that is I first ran across her when I read many years ago, 20-some years ago, 25 years ago, A Course in Miracles. And I was reading it to my wife at the time, and she couldn't quite understand it. So I found out about this book called A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. And I bought it, and we read that together, and it simplified it all so beautifully. And the message was simply the same as God's message or Christ's message was, I give you a new commandment. Love. And love is not anything about separation. It's not about judgment. It's not about the divisiveness. It's not about me. It's about God's unconditional love. That just as you said, accept the fact that things are going to happen, and then as they come to you, just deal with it. Do something about it then. Or it's your choice anyway. We're always choosing what we want to do. We're choosing either to follow negative thoughts or downward spiraling thoughts or less than thoughts or whatever else, or we can start following thoughts of appreciation and praise and gratitude, and that will naturally, even as that Japanese gentleman did years ago with the water he freeze water crystals, or would freeze water, and then had give it certain thoughts, downward spiraling thoughts of anger, whatever else it may be, and then upward spiraling thoughts of praise and love and gratitude, and the water crystals would change and become magnificent. And we have that choice. We can do that at any time ourselves if we really want to. And that's what it's boiling down to right now. That the answer is already within us. It's here. The answer to all of our problems is the same, basically. The only difference is how we approach it. And so, where do you go for that answer? You go within for yourself. That's the only way you're going to find it. There can be guides, that can direct you there, and help you along the way, even on the outside, like Ascension is, or teachers of certain practices. But ultimately, again, as I mentioned earlier, all true teachings are going to point the finger back at your own heart. Find a practice that takes you within, deep within, beyond all the crap, the judgment, the thoughts, the ideas, beyond all the movements, beyond all the dreams, to that still small voice, and then tune into it. Because you're going to get the answers that are going to serve you best. And if they serve you best, they're not going to serve those around you and humanity best. Because in reality, there is no one to blame. There really isn't. You put it so well, Danielle. There really isn't. Because that's giving your power away.
Right, exactly, as though you're powerless. And it's up to somebody else to solve your problems, and we've come into a world too much like that. And I remember years ago someone had asked me, well, how do I do this? And I said, well, how would you do it?
Yeah.
And I think too often we search for solutions outside of ourselves because we're afraid of making mistakes. Well, that's how the helicopter was invented. They made a mistake and designed the thing the wrong way. Had they designed it the way they were supposed to, and actually built it the way they actually designed it, it would have never flown. I guess, so the story goes anyway.
Yeah, it's really quite simple in the long run. We just make it so complicated. But we have the choice. We are the creators. We have to be the doers to create what we want. And there are no accidents, out there at all. We, believe it or not, because of, again, what we have chosen to go through, the things happen for a greater good, for a greater cause. We just get caught up in, again, why, how come all this other stuff out there? We're blaming someone else, whatever else it is. Well, why did this happen to me? That's really a good question to ask oneself. Why? Is it my thoughts? Is it my beliefs? Is it something I did or chose a long time ago? And it could be. Chances are it is. It has to be, really, in the long run. And it takes courage. It really does. And what it boils down to is to start just standing up for yourself. And one of the reasons I mentioned about politics is because Marianne Williamson, who is running for president right now, and wrote another book called A Politics of Love. And I just ordered that because I just found out about it. I'm very curious as to what she says in there, because as MSI says in the Ascension book, there's only one answer to all problems, and it is the same. And that's to go to the source, the ultimate source itself, to go to the source of love. Because that's what will benefit everyone, everywhere, at all times, in all generations. And then start creating from there. Whatever you want to create, whatever you want to do, however you want to change the world. We can only, again, change the world or heal the world by healing ourselves first. And then, boom, we can do it. We will do it.
Now, I'm curious, as people are listening today, first of all, is there maybe an exercise you can give to our listeners that they can start with so they can at least get started? And how can they find out more about someone who may be able to share a teaching or a way that they can go about doing this? Well,
the first thing that comes to me is just praise praise is a simple choice. And you can begin to see, look for, and actually see the good in things, the good in people. Something to praise about them, even something material to praise about them, whatever else it may be, how they look, what they wear, how they're dressing, how their eyes are, whatever else it may be. And be grateful. Because with praise and with gratitude, it will naturally expand love. You can do it before you go to bed at night. Instead of the mind just going, allowing the mind to go with all these things that you got to do the next day, or you got your plans and everything else and all that. Just think of some things instead that you can actually be grateful for, or to praise. And to me, that was the start of it. I would find that out in nature, as I mentioned, when I would walk away, because all of nature, it praises. Everything's growing up. The birds are singing, and things are taking place that way. And there are great teachings out there. We live in a world also that people are actually waking up right now too, even with all the distractions that are going on, that really want more, that they know that their life is not going to be fulfilled or completely satisfied with the objective things, with the material things at all. So I ran across this very simple teaching called the Art of Ascension, as taught by the Ishayas. And to find out more about it, there is a website. And the website's very simple, artofascension.com. A-R-T of ascension.com. And in there are courses that you can take at their training center in Central Missouri to learn this practice. And there are also teachers like myself who live in certain areas of the country or travel and will teach. And we always teach in twos, rather than just being something that one is coming to be the teacher for it. It is a practice that I guess it even goes back to MSI. He wanted it done this way so that there's not only support for one another on there, but that people can hear it from two different nervous systems and maybe hear it clearer from one and from the other, because we all take things in differently. And there is a schedule of different courses. The primary course is called a First Sphere Workshop, where you learn these first 4 techniques: praise, gratitude, love, and compassion. And they take place during the weekend. Where on a Friday evening from about 7 till 10, you learn the very first technique and attitude and have ample time to experience it and go home with it, and then come the following morning and find out. We will share with you then basically the mechanics of it, how it works and why it's working, and then share the gratitude and the love attitudes, and then again ample time to experience it when you go home that night. And the following final morning you will receive the final technique, the cognition technique, which will be compassion, and be able to practice all 4 of them. So and it's for anybody, regardless of your belief, and it will enhance your religious belief, whatever your religion may well be. Yet I've taught people of all different kinds of beliefs and ideas and from different cultures. But it's a matter of following your heart, doing that which you are led to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's been a wonderful time to have spent with you about all this, especially in a world today that's out there searching for answers and finding anxiety levels and stress levels rising and feeling like answers aren't being found. And then, as we have certainly said here many times, well, let's start by looking within. And if the question is, well, how do I go about doing that? Here is a particular way that might be able to help you, or should be able to help you to do that, regardless of your background or what you believe. And I think that's always an encouraging, good start. For our listeners, again, go ahead and give out that website where they can find out more about this.
artofascension.com.
Very good. Do you have any final thoughts for our listeners?
What I said earlier, I'll just repeat that again. Follow your heart. But there's lots of things in the way of maybe you recognizing what your heart is telling you. So a practice like Ascension and any other little good practice that will get you in direct contact with that which points you back to your own heart. And that's what to follow, because that's what's going to lead you to your greater good. And it will work. Thank you, Daniel, for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. And I encourage all of your listeners out there to continue to tune into Beyond 50 Radio, because you guys are doing a tremendous job there. So keep up the good work.
Well, thank you very much, and you too as well. It's been a pleasure to have you on the Beyond 50 Radio program today.
Thank you.
We want to thank you, the listeners out there, for joining us. You can also discover more at beyond50radio.com. That is the number 50. We do encourage you to sign up for our weekly e-newsletter to keep up to date with what's going on in the world of Beyond 50, as well as our upcoming shows. I'm Daniel Davis. Again, thank you for joining us. This is the Beyond 50 Radio program, and remember, live your day past halfway.